Hello, please put your phones on silent mode. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening. It is a great honor for us to welcome the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres at his press conference. Upon his arrival to Lebanon last Sunday, the country he holds very dear to his heart, the Secretary General noted that if there is one word to characterize his visit, the word is solidarity, Tadam. Tonight, he concludes a very eventful visit that included wide-ranging engagement in Lebanon with diverse sections of the society, as well as field trips to the north and to the south. We have the opportunity to hear from Secretary General his main takeaways and impressions from a timely and constructive visit. Following his opening remarks, the Secretary General will be happy to take some questions. It is my honor, Secretary General. Please, you have the floor.
A very good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for your presence, ladies and gentlemen of the media. I thank President Michel Aoun, Speaker of Parliament Nabi Berri, Prime Minister Najib Mikati, the government of Lebanon, and the Lebanese people for their warm welcome. I'm grateful not only for the possibility to engage with the political and military authorities in important discussions about the future of Lebanon, but also with the religious leaders, several groups of representatives of the civil society, women activists, and youth. It has been an honor for me to visit Lebanon once again. But it grieves me to see the people of this beautiful country suffering so much. The people of Lebanon face immense challenges. Yet, despite the strains they endure, the warmth and generosity of the Lebanese people continues to shine. The region and the world remain thankful for Lebanon's generosity in giving refuge to people fleeing violent conflict abroad. And I first witnessed this as Commissioner for Refugees, and I felt it again these past 2 days in conversations with Lebanese people from all walks of life. I commend Lebanon's spirit of coexistence and tolerance. Ladies and gentlemen, while here I visited the Beirut port. My thoughts are with the victims of the devastating blast that took the precious lives of more than 200 people, parents, daughters, sons, friends and colleagues from over a dozen countries. The United Nations mourns with you. 2 children of UN staff members were among the youngest victims. the Lebanese people and the families of all the victims deserve answers and justice that can only be met through impartial, thorough, and transparent investigation. I am also gravely concerned about the impact of the economic and financial crisis in the country, causing ever more people to need humanitarian assistance. Yesterday, I visited Tripoli in North Lebanon, and today Tyre in the south. And I was very moved when listening to first-hand testimonies of how the crisis is impacting people's daily lives. People expect their political leaders to listen to their needs and to restore the economy, including through a functioning government and state institutions and by effectively fighting corruption. These past 2 days, I have urged Lebanon's political leaders to work to implement reforms that respond to the demands of the Lebanese people for greater welfare, accountability, protection and transparency in order to restore hope for a better future. I've underlined the need to allow for the swift start of the formal negotiations to finalize the agreement with the IMF without further impediments. Seeing the suffering of the people of Lebanon, Lebanese leaders do not have the right to be divided and paralyze the country. All government institutions are measured on results: social protection, access to electricity and water, education and basic health care, good governance, and the protection of human rights. In charting a path towards sustainable recovery, civil society, women and young people have a critical role to play. Their voices must be heard and their proposals seriously considered. Free and fair parliamentary elections held on time in 2022 will be an essential opportunity for the people to make their voices heard. The announcement of the President of the Republic after our meeting that the elections will be held in early May, confirmed in my meetings with the Prime Minister and the President of the Parliament, represents an important guarantee that the Constitution will be respected and the meaningful participation of women will be essential. As part of our commitment to Lebanon's stability, I visited UNIFIL in southern Lebanon. Commitment to the full implementation of Resolution 1701 and maintaining the cessation of hostilities across the Blue Line and decreasing tensions between the parties is crucial. The rockets fired from Lebanese territory and the response from Israel earlier this year are reminders of the dangers to international peace and security. A miscalculation or misunderstanding could have profound consequences. Violations are also unacceptable. UNIFIL also needs full and unimpeded access throughout its area of operations. I take this opportunity to salute the thousands of women and men, peacekeepers who are far from their families and countries, serving peace in Lebanon. And I'd like to stress that continued international support to the Lebanese armed forces is essential for the stability in Lebanon. I encourage all member states to continue and, more important, to increase that support. The United Nations, with the international community, including through the International Support Group, remains committed to helping promote a sustainable recovery and an inclusive and dignified future for Lebanon and its people in full respect of human rights. The international community must be ready to substantially increase its solidarity with Lebanon in the implementation of the needed reforms to stabilize the economy and address the basic needs of the Lebanese people. Let's not forget that the UN Humanitarian Response Plan is only 11% funded, despite the dramatic situation of the Lebanese people and the Lebanese economy. Let me close by once again asking the political leaders to resolve the crisis and the international community to come forward, strengthening its support for Lebanon. Thank you. And I am naturally at your disposal for a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now open the floor for Q&As. We will have only one question per person to allow as many people to ask questions. Please raise your hand, and if given the floor, please say your name and the name of the media organization you belong to. Thank you.
مرلان خليفة، موقع مصدر دبلوماسي. سأطرح سؤالي باللغة العربية. حضرة الأمين العام، شاركت الأمم المتحدة برعاية مؤتمرات.
Just a moment, because I'm having some problems here. Can you?
Okay. حضرة الأمين العام، شاركت الأمم المتحدة. Okay.
Just a moment. It's the sound. It's very low.
حضرة الأمين العام.
Sorry. I have to do something.
Don't worry about that. Okay.
Yes.
حضرة الأمين العام، شاركت الأمم المتحدة برعاية مؤتمرات عدة للدول المانحة من أجل لبنان ولدعم الشعب اللبناني بدعوة من فرنسا. هل من مؤتمر جديد تحضره الأمم المتحدة وفرنسا من أجل لبنان، وخصوصا وأن فرنسا ستترأس مجلس الأمن الدولي مطلع العام الجديد؟ شكرا.
We have a number of initiatives prepared, but we... Can you hear me?
No.
This was about the possibility of organizing conferences. So we have a number of initiatives prepared, and we would be ready. And we have been in contact with different member states to organize a strong mobilization of the international community, including the possibility of a conference, but a strong mobilization of the international community. But the international community will probably not, independently of the support that has been provided, will not be responding as we need to respond if they see the country paralyzed and if they do not see a number of clear reforms in relation to the economic and the social and the political life of the country, guaranteeing that the Lebanese institutions are putting the country on the right track, fighting corruption, respecting human rights, and presenting a credible economic recovery plan, in which, of course, the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund are essential. We need the support of the international community to be much larger than what it is today, and Lebanon, the Lebanese people deserve it, but there is a homework that must be done in Lebanon, and that homework is essential for the credibility of Lebanon in order to make sure that we are successful mobilizing the support of the international community.
حسين عز الدين، قناة العالم الإخبارية. حضرة الأمين العام، طبعا أثنيتم من خلال كلمتكم على أنكم حريصون على أمن وسلامة لبنان، إلا أن ما يعيشه لبنان واقعا هو الخروقات التي يعاني منها من قبل الكيان الإسرائيلي الذي ما زال يحتل جزء كبير من الأراضي اللبنانية، وهو يخرق القرار 1701 الذي طبعا برعايتكم تعملون على تطبيقه وإنفاذه حتى يكون على الأقل مسار آمن بين لبنان وفلسطين المحتلة. هل بإمكان الأمم المتحدة وأنها تعمل حقيقة على الضغط على الكيان الإسرائيلي لوقف خروقاتها البحرية والبرية والجوية واستعمال الفضاء اللبناني أيضا للاعتداء على دول عربية شقيقة للبنان؟ شكرا.
First of all violations are unacceptable, as I said in my intervention. And on the other hand, we are totally committed, as we know where the origin of the problem is, we are totally committed to the two-state solution in Palestine and Israel. We are totally committed for a Palestinian state created and recognized in line with the resolutions of the General Assembly and the Security Council, and living in peace and security with the State of Israel, and with obviously the guarantee that the integrity of Lebanon will be entirely respected.
Thank you from CCTV Chinese National Television. Two questions, okay. Yes. I have been in Beirut for 2 months. Every day we are talking about economic crisis and the political disputes. So what do you think the future of Lebanon, and how can we achieve unity here in a country so divided? And another question is about China. You will go to Beijing to participate in the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. So some countries boycott the Olympic diplomatically. So what do you think of the relationship between sports and politics? Thank you.
Well, the economic crisis in Lebanon is today extremely deep. With the collapse of large sectors of the economy and the financial sector, with the dramatic situation of people that see their savings and cannot get them, savings of a full life of work, when the jobs disappearing in large numbers, when for the first time, I believe in Lebanon, problems of nutrition existing, we are facing a very, very dramatic situation. That is why it is so important to restart negotiations with the International Monetary Fund and to establish a credible plan of economic recovery, able to mobilize the support of the international community. But that requires, of course, a political will to do so. Second, I received an invitation at the International Olympic Committee, and I accepted that invitation. Of course, every country will do whatever every country decides. It's not for me to take position in relation to what other countries will do. I do what I believe I should do in my position of Secretary General of the United Nations.
أحمد سنجاب مدير مكتب وكالة أنباء الشرق الأوسط المصرية. سؤالي لحضرتك هو ماذا ستقدم الأمم المتحدة من دعم للبنان خلال الانتخابات المقبلة لضمان إجراء الانتخابات في موعدها؟
First of all, the elections need to be convened, and I got guarantees that it will happen. And the United Nations has the capacity to provide technical support, and that technical support will be provided. Our aim, naturally, is that we will do it in the perspective of the organization of free and fair elections with adequate opportunities, the same for all those that will dispute those elections.
Ana Maria Ohan, EFE, the Spanish news agency. After listening to testimonies of Lebanese people and overall your visit, do you think there must be an international investigation regarding the Beirut port explosion for it to be as transparent as possible?
Well, there is an investigation taking part, and I am a strong supporter of the separation of powers. I would not take any initiative to put into question what is being done. But obviously, I believe that it is necessary to have an investigation that is fully independent, impartial, and transparent. And I hope that this will be the case in the Lebanese context. And of course, if that will not be the case in the Lebanese context, I believe that it would be important for the international community to act, what requires, of course, mechanisms of decision that go far beyond my own competence.
حضرة الأمين العام محمد البرجي القاهرة 24. سؤالنا لحضرتك، هل من جديد فيما يخص المراجعة لدور اليونيفيل التي طلبتموها في آخر تجديد للقرار 1701 في آب الفائت فيما يخص عمل اليونيفيل الميداني وتعاونها مع الجيش اللبناني؟
I only believe in reviewing mandates in order to improve them. So if there is any intention to improve the mandate, of course we'll be very much open to consider it. But I would not be interested in any revision of the mandate to make it worse than what it is today. So our job is not to change our mandate, that belongs to the Security Council. Our job is to act according to our mandate with the impartiality that characterizes the United Nations. And at the same time, in a moment like this, I think the UNIFIL has the duty, and I believe UNIFIL is doing it, to express its solidarity with the Lebanese people and in its area of intervention to support the Lebanese people, and also with the decision that the Security Council has authorized to support with different kinds of fuel, food and medicines and other aspects the Lebanese armed forces, with which the UNIFIL, as you know, cooperates entirely. The UNIFIL works in close cooperation with the Lebanese armed forces. And that should not be changed.
Will the Lebanese health sector benefit from any sort of assistance from the UN amid the current political, economic, and sanitary crisis? And if that's the case, how would this assistance be implemented and through which mechanism? Thank you.
The UN has mobilized all its agencies, and especially in the context of the COVID, to fully support Lebanon. And I believe that UNICEF and WHO have been very active in relation to support the vaccination process, in relation to the provision of different equipments, in relation to cooperation with different entities of the civil society involved in this sector, and in providing technical assistance to the official departments that are responsible for health in Lebanon. We are totally committed to support the Lebanese people in these very difficult circumstances in which increased poverty is added to a newly spreading COVID-19.
Press TV. First of all, I would like to say that people of Lebanon highly value the pivotal role of the UNIFIL that have been among us, of course, for decades. Another issue is that the economic crisis in Lebanon is partially due to the presence of a very high number of refugees in Lebanon. And a daily question that is on the minds of the Lebanese is that the funding of the Syrian refugees in Lebanon is what is stopping them from going back to their home country. What can you tell us about this?
Well, first of all, I am very grateful to the Lebanese people for the way Lebanon has opened its doors, its borders, its hearts to Syrian refugees when so many rich countries in the world have closed theirs. On the other hand, I was, as High Commissioner for Refugees, responsible for the support to Syrian refugees. Now we believe that independently of that support, and let's not forget that Syrian refugees, 90% are in a situation of extreme poverty. Now the emergency response plan of the UN is addressed to the Lebanese people themselves, because the Lebanese people themselves is now having dramatic humanitarian needs. So I don't think that we should, in the present moment, only consider refugees. I think it's the Lebanese people that is in the center of our concerns. I do not think that it is because of the meager, very meager support that we provide to Syrian refugees in Lebanon that they do not go to Syria. I think it's because the situation in Syria is still far from giving the guarantees that the refugees themselves feel necessary. But of course, any Syrian refugee that wants to go back to Lebanon will be supported by us.
كاترين حنا الجزيرة. سعادة الأمين العام، تحدثتم بالأمس عن مسعى من أجل تسهيل مفاوضات ترسيم الحدود البحرية بين لبنان وإسرائيل. ما هي الخطوات التي يمكن أن تقوم بها الأمم المتحدة في هذا المجال؟ وأين هي نقطة التعثر الأساسية برأيكم في هذه المفاوضات؟
These negotiations are taking place between Israel and Lebanon with the mediation of the United States. So the UN has not a direct role in the mediation. Mediation is done by the United States. Of course, it takes place in UNIFIL. In Nakura, in UNIFIL. But we are hosts. We are not actors. And obviously, the difficulties are related to the delimitation. That, of course, is the limitation in which the two countries have not yet agreed. I think it's very important that these negotiations move quickly, because we are discussing areas with rich natural resources, and for the Lebanese economy, those rich natural resources will be very important. And so I think it is in the interest of everybody to move quickly with these negotiations and to come quickly to a result. And from our side, we'll do anything that we are required in order to support that process.
Nabil Abi Saab, Al-Arabi TV station. Mr. Secretary General, did you raise the issue of the eastern border of Lebanon in this visit? Did you discuss the situation on the eastern border between Lebanon and Syria? Because as we read in your periodic reports that these borders are not under the control of the Lebanese army in some parts of it. So what do you think about the eastern borders? What should be done for the state of Lebanon and to stabilize maybe, or to have better control of these borders?
It was not an area that was discussed in depth. We mentioned several difficult situations in that border. I remember when I was High Commissioner for Refugees, there was an area, let me see, Arzal, that I visited, where there was infiltration of several groups from the Syrian area, and where the Lebanese armed forces were asked to come and to protect the population. And in my opinion, it is essential that the Lebanese armed forces are able to control all the borders of the country.
With no further questions, thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Thank you, everyone, for your presence. Merci beaucoup. شكرا.
The text of my intervention will be distributed electronically.
The remarks of the Secretary General will be disseminated electronically to all who are present and registered at the door. Thank you.
Right.